see if Richie's on the line. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am back with another live. I just want to say in advance, I'm so sorry that I didn't do a live last week. I'm just exhausted. You know when you have those... Again, it kind of links into our theme today. So self-care and ways to love yourself better. And last week, I was so exhausted. I was just like, no, I can't do this. I can't do another live. And I was like really, really anxious for a lot of the week. And I just said, I need a break. So that's why I didn't do a live last week. But I'm back again this week with a really special guest. I'm so excited for this live. So in this live, we're going to have a friend of mine, Richie. Richie is a presenter and broadcaster. You may have seen him actually on Grapevine TV. So I was on Grapevine TV in 2017, I think. And that's when I met Richie. So he's presented for the likes of BET, and if you're in the UK, BBC One Extra. So I'm sure you guys know who he is. Let me see if we can get him included. Let's see if he's here. Yes, he is. Ways to love yourself better. So this episode is all about self-care. And I wanted a guy to get involved.
I'm in. Hey.
Hey, Richie, how are you?
What is going on? I'm good. I'm chilling. I've got a hat on because quarantine hasn't been very kind to my hairline. So
you know what? I was going to say you're glowing though. You are glowing. You look like you've been on holiday.
I wish. I've been in the garden.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's garden time.
It's garden time.
A brief intro to you, to like the people watching. But do you want to just introduce yourself to the people watching as well?
Yeah, so I'm a presenter, broadcaster. Obviously had a podcast on One Extra called Brave Conversation, so check that out. And that was pretty much just a podcast amplifying the voices of people that aren't always heard. Community worker, so I've been working in the community for 15 odd years now.
Wow.
I'm just here and I chat shit on Twitter all the time. Kind of just... That's my personality. But I'm glowing. You are glowing today.
It's the ring light.
It's crazy. Same. Wait.
Hey, okay.
Same.
So I really wanted to get you involved in this discussion, and I thought this was like a great theme for you because obviously, like, I met you on Grapevine, and I just thought like you were really, really eloquent with how you shared your feelings.
Thank you.
What I really loved was how like openly vulnerable that you are all the time. I see it on Twitter, hear it on radio, seen it on Grapevine, and I think a lot of men do struggle with vulnerability. And I thought, okay, you would be the perfect person to have on this episode because you could talk about self-love, you could talk about self-love from a male's perspective, and I knew you'd be very open about it.
Absolutely.
So, ways to love yourself better. Now, I obviously sent you a list, and you sent me a list.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with one of your tips for
yourself
better?
So, I mean, you spoke about you're going to speak about this. I don't want to take your shine, but you mentioned boundaries, so we're going to get onto that. But I guess for me, like, that kind of loving yourself and taking care of yourself is the importance of not having toxic relationships in your life. Yeah. And especially so on quarantine. And I said this to my friend the other day, like, given that we're all on lockdown, it's really important that you remember that you're a person and not a source of entertainment for somebody, so making sure that those connections that you have in your life serve you in the best way. And I think, lots of people are feeling lonely. You're on lockdown, you're at home, you're not seeing your friends, all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes I feel like it can open doors to people who probably shouldn't be in your life. So for me, it's that importance of, recognizing that you're a person and those connections that you have in your life should really serve you. And you should be having people who love you in your life very much the same way you love yourself. Yeah. Or love you even more, or show you new ways to love yourself. So like one of my biggest things around loving myself is having people in my life that love me and who I love back. And that is just so important to me. So important.
That's so true. And it's crazy because sometimes I think that we can underestimate the value of like friendships and relationships and whatnot in our life. And I was shocked, like, growing up to realize, and this is something I realized more so I think in my late 20s, that there are a lot of people with friends who aren't actually genuine friends to them.
I've had those.
You had those? Yeah.
Yeah.
you hear of situations where there might be like a friendship group, and it's not gender specific. It could be male, female, mixed friendship group, where members of the group are in this friendship not because there's a genuine care and consideration for each other, but because maybe someone has something to gain, or maybe someone is using the other person. And I did say, like, just the other day actually, I tweeted about this, and I said, sometimes that in relationships and friendships, they can last a really long time, and not because they're healthy. They can last a long time because someone's compliant. They can last a long time because someone's manipulative, because someone's scared to leave, because someone's keeping up appearances.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think, like, when it comes to self-love, we can mistake length and quantity for quality. We think if someone's been in a relationship for a really long time, or if someone's been friends for a really long time, they're super, super close and they're super healthy, when in actuality, there are lots of people who know someone and they've known that person for a long period of time, but that person isn't even contributing to their life in a healthy way. But you said you've had some of those. Are you free to, like...
Yeah, so you know what, like, and I don't believe that friendships are, I think lots of people focus on the transaction. So what are you bringing into my life? And if you're not bringing me nothing, get out of my life, and da 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 da. And even that is toxic in itself. But I think for me, like, in the past, I've had friends that, you know, my weight, even as a man, has been very up and down, like, my whole life, you know. And even people who take little digs at the way you look, or little digs at your weight and all of that kind of stuff. And people assume that these things don't get to men. And it's definitely, like, I was a lot bigger than I am now. Like, the comments like that sometimes get to me, you know. And it's those little things that, you know, chip away at your self-esteem, or, you know, you're doing things and people start to doubt the things that you're doing and start to question you and all of that kind of stuff. I just think, for me, I've had to be very protective of who's around me. And we've got this whole kind of culture now of shade, and people talk about shade all the time. And my whole thing is this, like, I don't believe in throwing shade or throwing, like, backhanded compliments at people you love and your friends. We banter, yes, but actually, if you don't have the right intentions for me, there's no point in you being around. I am not someone who does that. You try and chat to me like that, I'm coming for you. I'm not going to do it. I'm not passive aggressive. I'm aggressive aggressive. I'm going to address the situation. So for me, I've had people in my life, and relationships, even like intimate relationships, that haven't served me. And I'm lucky enough now, one of them, Eden, is part of my brothers. So I've got a group of brothers that literally we uplift each other on a daily basis. So I'm lucky to say, and I've got old, like, long time friends as well who, you know, uplift me and we uplift each other. So, you know, I keep banging on about relationships, but those things really shape the reality around us. Even our kind of intimate relationships, if we are with someone who isn't good for us, it starts to skew the way we see ourselves and the way that we see the world. So that's why I think your intimate partners, you need to be very careful. And that sex, when someone's toxic, can feel really good, but it doesn't serve you in the long term. It's short-term gain. The pain is long-term, you know? So it's about being able to balance the two.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And the thing you touched on about making digs, like friends that do that. I have seen it firsthand, where I've seen, like, a group of friends, and I've seen this, actually, I used to see this in university a lot. So in my late teens and in my early 20s, when you'd see, like, a group of girls who are friends, everything is A-okay, everything is A1, cool. Guys come into a group, or they're in a situation where there are guys around, and all of a sudden one of the female friends is taking digs at some of her other female friends in an attempt to look more appealing to the men, or to shame the guys and whatnot. And I do think sometimes people can have friends who are undercover haters. So, like, in your situation, where people may have made comments about your weight, or made comments about your aspirations, maybe it's a thing whereby they saw you making steps to, like, change your life or better your life, in their opinion, and they had an issue with it. And one thing that I do believe is that sometimes, like, people exit our life because we've done something wrong. Sometimes people exit our life because they've done something wrong. But also sometimes people exit our life because we are doing something right and they can't stomach it. Like, sometimes people, and I tweeted about this the other day too.
Come true.
Sometimes some people have friends, and I say, when I say friends, I say this very loosely, right? Some people have friends that do not want to see them win.
Yo, trust
and
me.
I think when it comes to self-care, it's about keeping people around that want to see you win, that want to see you better yourself, that don't try and stifle that.
And I think what you said is really interesting. So you spoke about a group of female friends, and when somebody that they may find attractive comes along, the vibe changes. And guys do that as well, you know. Like,
They
it's not just
do
girls.
that.
They start beating their chest. They're like, yo, no, 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 no. Like, they do that as well. They try and juxtaposition. They try and get into this kind of, you know, get themselves into a position where they're looking like the alpha and you're the dickhead and da 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 da. And I just think it's bad. Like, when your boys are doing it and you know it's bad, it's one thing. But I think, you know, when it's happening and the underlying kind of intent behind that is to rubbish you and ridicule you, it's a problem. And me, I don't deal with that very well. I'm not going to talk about how it makes me feel and how I've dealt with it in the past, but for me, I don't deal with that very well, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a good one for me, Tony, at all.
I'm sure you check them. I know you check them.
I mean,
so okay, so we've covered, like, obviously the company you keep, like, that's a massive part of self-care and one way to love yourself better. And I think maybe another thing as well is not just how other people speak to us, but how we speak to ourselves, and that inner voice. And I think sometimes when people have a low sense of self-worth, that doesn't always necessarily come directly from other people. Sometimes it's within them because they don't talk to themselves with love. Like, as far as, like, your experience, do you feel like you're someone who talks to yourself with love generally, or can you be quite harsh on yourself?
No, I can be really harsh on myself, and I think I can be horrible to myself sometimes. And I think that this self-love journey that people talk about, for me, is very up and down. And some days it's good and I wake up and I'm feeling myself and da 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 da, and other days I wake up and I'm very hard on myself. So I think the problem is we view this thing as a destination and you're going to get to self-love and everything's going to be great. It's a journey, and it's something that never stops. Like, you go into it, sometimes you go into a relationship, your relationship breaks up and you're at step one again, or your friend says something to you that's a bit out of turn and you're at step two again. So I think it's something that's very up and down for me. I've always tried to be kind. I'm good to myself in some ways and bad to myself in others. So some things I find easier to get on with self-love, and some things I find harder, but I'm not always good to myself, no. And when people say that they are, I look at them sideways because I don't believe it. It means you're a liar. So stop lying.
Yeah, no, it's true. I agree with you. Like, it's definitely a journey. Like, even like from my experience, I have days where I'm like, yes, I'm a boss. Yeah, I'm doing this. Yeah. Then I have days where I'm just like, what am I doing? Where am I going? What am I achieving? Like, what's going on? Like, where I'm just like beating myself up. And you're so right in that it's a journey. Like, when it comes to your inner voice, it's something you have to train. Like, the same way someone would train a pet. Like, imagine your inner voice is a pet. Like, you have to train that inner voice every day. And it's
Absolutely.
Not a point where you think, oh, I could train it for a small amount of time and then the kitten's going to get it and then the kitten's going to be fine. Like, no, it's like constant. Or the same way, like someone who, like, if we have any parents listening, like the same way you would like raise a child, in that every day you have to instill lessons, and every day you have to speak to yourself and tell yourself to pattern up. And every time you mess up, because we're only human and we mess up, you have to just train yourself to allow your inner voice to be better to you.
Definitely.
Like, do you ever do like affirmations? Because girls talk a lot about like self-affirmation, like boosting themselves up, writing in a journal, boosting themselves up. Is this something that like guys talk about? Like,
Tony, I'm a lazy shit. So I got friends who are really good at this. As a person, I'm a lazy bastard. So the affirmation thing goes out the window, but it's something that I put on the list that I sent you. I listen to music. Yeah, you know, like songs that make you feel like the shit. You know, like you're just listening to that tune and you're just walking up the road like no one can chat to me.
When I started this live, Golden by Jill Scott,
this is it.
That,
Yeah. Or even songs like New Body. You know, you see a lot of girls do New Body, and I can tell the feeling when they're just singing those lyrics. I can tell how it's making them feel.
What's your go-to feel-good song then?
Oh yeah, Here Comes the Sun is one of mine. It's a house song. Okay. I've got loads. I've got dancehall, house music. I'm a piano music. Like, sometimes it's just the beat. You know, you're just walking up sometimes it's the toxic tunes as well. And we won't go down that road.
What? Yeah, you know what?
But you're just walking up the road like, you mad. Don't chat to me.
But I'm not going to say who I listen to because, like, I don't need them toxic. I don't need to advertise them toxic tunes. Yeah, I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Those toxic tunes sometimes are like, if you are not making me feel good about myself, this song is going to make me feel toxic but amazing. So let me not embody the toxic energy, but let me just make me feel like I'm the shit. You know what I mean? Uncle Tommy,
You
nothing
listen to
out here.
Future, don't you? You listen to Future, don't you? Stop lying, Richie. I know. Future is one of them, I know.
How do I leave the live?
I'm joking. Okay, so that's a sick one, actually. Like, music. And you know what? I remember, to get kind of personal, I remember I was going through a difficult period one time. Like, you know those days where you just sit and, like, if you're with your thoughts for too long, you might just
Yeah.
I was going through a difficult period. I remember listening back to back to Chance the Rapper coloring book.
Yeah.
And that just changed like my whole perception. And every moment that I felt sad, I would just switch on that album and I'd be like, okay.
It worked for you.
It worked for me, man. It worked for me. Like, it really did.
I feel like sometimes with the music as well, it's something that helps channel the emotion. So like for me, if I go for a breakup or something, I want the saddest song ever made in the whole world. You know, my go-to song is Jill Scott, Slowly Surely. Yo, if I'm heartbroken and I need to cry, please know that song's getting cracked up. I'm in my bed, don't phone me, don't chat to me, I'm having a Jill moment, you know what I mean? So there's something about like finding music that amps you up and makes you feel good about yourself. Equally, there's something about finding music that allows you to connect to yourself and the emotions within. Because people think surviving and being good to yourself is avoidance and like not experiencing the emotions that you're feeling. Sometimes it's connecting to that sadness and processing it, like identifying it and processing it.
That is so true. Like, people, when we feel pain, like, everyone's quick to want to pretend it's not there. We need to sit in it, we need to absorb it, and we need to release it. Like, that is so on point. So going back to your list, you had another one on there. Do you want to like jump into like another? Do you remember them?
I know.
Okay, so you says having a day dedicated to yourself.
So I have something. I feel like I'm doing a lot of the talking, Tony. I don't know. I feel like we need to balance this out. So
don't worry, I'm gonna jump in.
Okay, cool. So something I have is called Selfish Sundays, and
Selfish Sundays.
Yeah. So I have like one Sunday every month. I mean, I can't have it now because I'm on lockdown, but I have one Sunday every month dedicated to myself. So I will take myself out for a meal. I will go to the cinema. I might buy myself something nice. I will maybe take a train journey sometimes, and it's just me. I'll switch off my phone, and I'll have selfish Sundays. And people close to me will call me, and they'll be like, "Oh, no, it's selfish Sunday. I know why your phone's off." Yeah. So it's really healthy, you know. And even in like relationships I've been in, you know, I was in a 5-year relationship, and you know, my other half understood that selfish Sundays was a thing that I needed to kind of, you know, support myself. So it's about having people around you that support that space that you need to take for yourself in that day. It's not about anybody else. It's about you. And yeah, that selfish Sunday, I advise everyone to do it. If you can take time out for yourself and not everyone can. Some people are carers, some people are parents, some people have responsibilities. But if you can move that time and take that time for yourself to dedicate it to yourself, it's so healthy. Going to a restaurant on your own, going to see a film, doing all of that, it's fantastic. I love it. I love my own space and my own time.
And I feel that links again to what we touched on in the beginning, which is having boundaries and respecting your own boundaries. And I think
talk to me about your boundaries, Tony. I'm ready.
My turn to talk. Yeah, I think when it comes to self-love, sometimes we break our own selves down because we are trying to be too much to too many people at once. And I've always said that, like, in order to make the people in our lives happy, whether that's a partner, whether that's friends, whether that's your child, like, you need to make sure that you are also happy and you are also content. Because when we are unhappy, then resentment builds up, then bitterness builds up, and that just adds toxicity to that relationship. And part of that is definitely like affirming your boundaries and saying, you know what, I want to help you with this thing, but I can't do it right now.
Absolutely.
Or like, because I've had an issue in the past with boundaries, particularly in the workplace, and my boss has even said to me, like, Tony, you need to know when it comes to work when to say no. And I think when it comes to loving yourself, like, knowing when to say no is so important. We're so quick to say yes, because we're trying to do too much. We're trying to be too much to too many people. And we need to stand in our no. Like, it's no coincidence, I think, that like as children, one of the first words children learn outside of mama and dada is no.
Yeah.
Because without our boundaries and without being able to affirm our boundaries, life becomes overwhelming. And
Absolutely.
and that's when we find ourselves in a rut, and that's when we find ourselves unhappy. And we need to be able to say to like family, like for example, like I'm doing my live now. Everyone knows 8 o'clock on Sunday. Don't ask me for nothing. Don't knock on my door. Don't come into my room. Don't nothing. 8 o'clock on Sunday, like Sunday, no. So that's just an example. But even my mum is actually like she watches all my lives, by the way. Super cool, super chill.
Oh, bless.
And
big love, mom.
I saw her commenting. Yeah, she's been bigging you up. I see her like, yes, Richie, yeah.
Oh,
My
bless.
mum even said like Sundays are an important day for her. Like she likes to have her Sundays, and it's true because I know Sunday, like leave her to do a thing. If she doesn't want to like talk to anyone until 12 p.m., she's not going to do it. But that's part of her administering self-care and self-love for herself. Because when she's trust me, when my mum's in a good mood, everyone's in a good mood. Because when my mum's in a bad mood, everyone else is in a bad mood, right? So
same.
It's about making sure you're happy enough to like be happy in your relationships with other people.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's also talk about triggers. I think that's an important one. We talked about boundaries, but also being aware of our triggers, I think, when it comes to self-care. So like an example is knowing what makes you unhappy, knowing what gives you anxiety, knowing what makes you upset. So one of my triggers, I would say, especially when it comes to anxiety, is negativity on social media, but particularly people who troll, and they're not disagreeing with you to educate or inform. They're attacking you personally, they're being unkind, they're being cruel. And I understand that that's a trigger for my anxiety. And my way of dealing with that is block. I just block
Instagram, block Facebook, block.
block everybody. So would you say that you have any like things that you know are triggers, or how are you aware of your triggers in a way that you can administer self-care?
Yeah, like I'm similar. So social media sometimes gets to me. And I had one the other day, some troll that was just going mad in my mentions, like, your brethrens don't like you. I know someone you know. Da, 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 da. You know, people like, I mean, it didn't really get to me, but sometimes things do. I would say that one of my triggers is feeling overwhelmed. So, you know, like you're talking about work, trying to do too many things at one time, and that lots of people at one time wanting your time, and, oh, you never message me back, and you never call me, and this never happened, and that never happened. I need to do this, I need to do that. And I'm someone, when things get overwhelming, I shut down. Like, I just can't cope. And it's really poignant for me at the moment, like in, you know, the pandemic. So my dad's nearly passed away weeks ago. Yeah, as you know, and like there was just work became too much, and I'm really empathic as well. So my friends were going through stuff and I just felt overwhelmed, and I ended up just shutting down. And I know for me, like really, and my dad's back home now. Let me just say that my dad's living life.
He's looking much better. Like I've seen,
he looks good, man. He looks good. But like real emotionally intense situations are triggers for me. And I think just general people not attempting to understand what I'm going through and where I'm at. You know, that's a trigger for me, where I'm just like, yo, when you need stuff, I'm about, and I'm giving you what you need. But now I'm going through it. It's a bit, that's a trigger.
Yeah.
It's a trigger. Yeah, so work, life, people,
all of it.
Everything. All of life, everything.
So another thing that I want to touch on is the physical side of self-love and self-care, and how much we cannot underestimate it. And my issue, and I know like my mom's in the chat watching and she's probably thinking the same thing, my issue is sleep.
Tony, talk the things, please. I'm ready.
When it comes to self-care, like it just doesn't stop at internal, like how we talk to ourselves, our friendships, whatnot. It's also how we take care of ourselves on a physical level. And one thing that I have been so bad at during this quarantine period is proper sleep. And me getting inadequate sleep contributes to my anxiety on a different level. I'm more irritable, I'm more stressed, I'm more panicky, I'm more worried, and I see it even physically in my body. And even as far as like not going outside, like people of color, for example, low vitamin D levels. And there's been reports that vitamin D has a direct impact on our ability to recover from coronavirus, but just disease and illness in general.
Respiratory system, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Direct.
So like not getting enough vitamin D is one of my problems. Not like eating properly and just not getting enough healthy vitamins in general, not sleeping properly, and all of those contribute to just not self-care on the outside, but also on the inside. Like impact is intense. Like, would you say that you're quite good at managing like the physical, like sleeping?
No, I'm shit at it. I'm
Yeah.
shit. I feel like Tony. I feel like we're a long lost brother and sister. You know,
It's so funny how we're like talking about self-care. Like, this is what you need to do, and this is what we're not doing.
yeah, but it's important, you know, and knowing what you're not doing still means that you know what you should be doing. So sleep for me has been mad. It's mad. I go to sleep at like 4 a.m., 3 a.m. at the moment. Yeah, it's been crazy. I've only been at, look at you, the supermodel. I've got self-care, water. But
oh no, so you see what I mean? I'm terrible.
But I've only been at my house 3 times in the past 2 months, 3 or 4 times. So I'm trying to get better at that. I mean, I've got a garden, so I go in there. That's why I'm a little bit glowing, because you know I've been catching some sun and that. But yeah, I try and get better at what I'm consuming. I had high blood pressure, so now I've come off of salt. Sugar's my weakness. So, you know, when I'm bored at 3 a.m., oh, a packet of Oreos, let's eat 7. You know them ones? Maybe not 1. Oh, a bloody, I don't know, a bottle of Nigerian Fanta. Oh, yes, let's drink the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. So food for me is a comfort, you know. So it's really weird when we talk about self-care, because some of those things that make you feel better in the short term don't make you feel better long term. So I'm trying to get better at that. So Tony, eating at the right times, I'm not great with it. I'm getting better. Sleeping at the right times, I'm not great with it. I'm attempting to get better. I feel like I'm saying the same things that you are. I'm in exactly the same boat.
Hey, no, it's important. It's important that we touch on those things, because I think sometimes we could be good at like the internal and not the external. And the external catches up with you. Like I'm 30 and I'm cool now, but I know that
30s gang.
Yeah, 30s gang. Woo woo. But like, I know that if I don't change my habits now, it's going to catch up to me. And I don't even care. It's not even that from a vanities perspective, because it's not even that physical side that I care about. It's the physical, internal physical, as in my lungs, my stomach, my muscles, my bones, my everything. Like, I want to be healthy in old age. And I think like a big part of self-love is making sure that you are taking, like you said, it might be short-term pain to exercise and eat spinach, but it's long-term gain when you're doing it habitually.
I haven't got to the exercise bit yet. I'm just saying.
I don't even remember last time I stepped in the gym. It's so bad. When Rona is over and things are a bit, well, Rona's always gonna be around, but when things are definitely.
It's been years for me, but I am lucky in that if I want to drop weight, it's overnight. Like I literally can. I've lost about 7 pounds in the past 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that's just from cutting out sugar. Like, and I eat it every now and then, but just from eating properly. My body's like, oh, okay, we're gonna do this. Hot boy summer, yeah, all right.
Hot boy summer, is that okay? We had 2019. You guys got 2020 here.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, so looking at your list, what else you got on here? Okay, we talked about removing toxicity, having it to yourself. Okay, one thing you said, insisting on entertaining a love that values you in every way. And you know me, I love to talk about love. I love love. I'm just a romantic.
Me too.
Okay, so let me know, what do you mean when you say having a love that values you in every way?
So let me give you a background. So my job, I did 10 years delivering relationship-based therapy programs. Wow. So like love and relationships, and they were domestic abuse programs, but you talk very much about value, respect, love, dynamics in relationships, all of that kind of stuff. And I touched on it earlier on, like loving yourself is you do not compromise on someone loving and respecting you. You do not compromise on it.
Yes.
And I feel like as a woman, you're probably more expected to compromise, actually. Like that toxicity, you're expected to put up with it. And, oh, this is all part of being in a relationship and experiencing love. And I always try and tell people, irrespective of your gender, sexuality, whoever you're with, what love looks like is, you know, when you lay your head down at night and you put your head down on your pillow, you have peace in your heart and peace in your stomach.
Richie,
that is what a relationship should look like.
You know,
Trust me.
See this guy you're not
Trust
following
me.
this guy, please make sure you follow him. Make sure you follow him. But yeah, sorry I interrupted you. But yes,
No, 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 no. It's just so important to me, Tony, because I just feel like we live in an age where relationships are seen as something that reinforces your value. And if you're not in one, you're not valuable and you're not desirable. And actually, it is better to be on your own and at peace than in a relationship and lonely and not valued. I promise you. That loneliness feels like shit, but you know when someone's in your life making you feel like you're alone, long thing.
I feel
Come
like
out of here.
maybe are we related? Because
I feel like we're related.
You're my brother from another mother. Because
Trust me, sis.
Everything you're saying right now is too on point. It is so important, like for people to understand that it is better to be single and happy than in a relationship and miserable. Like it's just not worth it. Like and I love that you were able to, as a man, even say that as women, we are expected to settle more when it comes to
that's a fact. Patriarchy.
And I love that you're able to just say that so openly, because I agree, like that narrative that is cascaded to women all the time is like struggle love, struggle love, struggle love. And even just to specify that a little bit more, like women in general will get it, period, but particularly black women, black women,
talk the things,
like
please.
we've seen a lot of our parents, our grandparents, aunties, uncles go through that struggle love. And I said just the other day on Twitter, like when it comes to struggle love, even if the last 10 years of a 30-year relationship are beautiful, I'm unwilling to spend a long period of my life in a relationship where someone disrespects me, where someone undervalues me, where someone stresses me out, where someone makes me reconsider my self-worth. Like it is not worth it. And I hate that narrative that in order for a black woman in particular to be happy and to find long-lasting love, she has to go through struggle. She has to go through trouble. And
romanticization of pain. That's mad to me. Like that, to me, that is not love. Like anyone who loves you is bringing you peace. Yes, you're going to have misunderstandings. Yes, you're going to have to grow together. But love is an organic process. It is not something that you should struggle. It should make you struggle to accept yourself. Or it shouldn't be something that causes you pain. Sometimes you hurt each other. Yes, that happens. But this kind of romanticized ideology of love and, you know, I am the main one. He may sleep with, or she may sleep with these other people, but you're coming home to my bed and, oh, all couples have these kind of blips. No, they don't. And I feel like you can love somebody and cheat on them. The problem is you love that person, you don't respect them. And you need both. You need both. You can respect someone and not love them, and you can love them and not respect them. And my whole thing is I've always taught the young women and men in my life that you need both to make a relationship work. Somebody loving you, it is not enough. They need to respect you, respect your journey, respect you as a person, respect where you're going in life, respect your wants, hopes, dreams, and aspirations, and they should lift you up when you need it. Like, it's so important to me.
Because in the past, I've said love is not enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
The trolls came for me. And I'm so happy that you're able to distinguish between like someone's ability to love you and someone believing, because some people in their heart, they will truly believe they love you. But like you said, they might not respect you, and that's a difference.
Absolutely.
And people, and the thing with relationships, it's like people, we're quick to forget that relationships are supposed to add to us. We're supposed to be in control of our own happiness. It's our responsibility. But anyone that comes into our life is supposed to top up that happiness. So if happiness is in a glass, like you need to be making sure, I need to be in control of making sure my glass is full, right? But you need to be topping it up to the point that any love that spills over is the love that I give to you, right?
Yes.
Now the issue is people are in relationships and they hear this struggle love narrative and they allow themselves to be in relationships that deplete them. Like if it's not adding value to your life, if it's not adding to the happiness that you already have, cut it off. Like relationships are meant to deplete us. And it's sad that so many of us think that that's a normal part. Oh, it's normal. And I'm not saying people don't go through issues in relationships, because they do. Like relationships are not easy, like at all. I agree. My share of relationships over numerous years, and they are not easy. But there is a difference between you jointly trying to, like, have you heard this quote? Like when you're in a relationship, it's not me versus you, it's me and you versus the problem. And
Trust me.
What happens a lot in a relationships is that we think it's us versus them. And a lot of the times, if we're with someone that's quite toxic, it is us versus them, and we're constantly butting heads. But You should be in a partnership. And any issues you have, even if there are issues with the dynamic of your relationship, you should be working together in a respectful way to deal with the root cause, to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not a thing
yeah.
where like this person is depleting me. It's like, okay, I'm going through a difficult period. Maybe we're not seeing eye to eye, but this person is respectful of me. They're respectful of my choices, my decisions, and my opinions. And together we can come together and we can come to a solution. But then the issue is when someone isn't respectful of your opinion, someone isn't respectful of your autonomy, and you're beefing in the relationship. Relationships should not be like that. You should not be enemies with your partner. They should not.
I
be
agree.
you.
And just to add on to that as well, and this is a saying I always say to my friends and say in relationships, arguments and disagreements don't need winners or losers, they need solutions.
Yes.
You know, it's not about winning and losing, because what ends up happening is you draw yourself into a battle with someone that's meant to be your equal. You know, so this isn't about me winning and you losing, or you winning and me losing. This is about a solution that benefits the both of us, which is a mutually beneficial solution, you know. So I think it's really important that we get ourselves out of the mindset that relationships are battles and relationships are places where we need to assert our power. Actually, it's about using the power that we have collectively for the want of a greater good between the both of us. And that is so important to me, because every time I go on Twitter and I look at people talking about relationships, it's very transactional, and it's very, what are you bringing to the table? Not thinking about what I'm bringing to the table. And it's very, if she does that, then he should do this. And if he does that, then she should do this. And I'm like, you are making your relationship a battleground. That is unhealthy for anybody. Your relationship should be a place of peace, and it's not something that completes you, and it's not something that saves you. It's your sanctuary. It adds to you. It's the place that you go when you need peace. And I've been lucky. I've had that, you know, but I can't say everybody else has.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's one thing that I would say that I've definitely had my fair share of like peaceful relationships. And the moment they're not peaceful, that's when you leave.
Check you out. You're a heartbreaker, Tony, innit?
I'm not a heartbreaker.
You're a heartbreaker.
I'm not a heartbreaker. I'm just, just know what I want and what I like and what I need, Okay, so I just want to stress, like, guys, if you are loving this live, like, please definitely like tweet about it, Instagram story, like, please big it up. Obviously, like, afterwards, I don't want you like jobbing out the live and missing gems like from Richie and then whatever. But if you are enjoying it, please let us know. Okay, so, and I also want to say, I want to open up the floor to questions too, because the one thing I like to do in these lives is give people watching the opportunity to ask questions. So if you have any questions you want to ask myself or you want to ask Richie, just throw them in. And I want to say as well, like, I'm really loving this live. Like, I do a lot of lives and I enjoy them anyway, but like, it's so nice to like hear these gems, because I'm learning something and I hope everyone else
I'm learning too. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we have talked about having friendships and relationships with people that care about you. We've talked about setting boundaries. We've talked about listening to music that makes you feel good, removing
feel like the shit.
We've talked about not being too hard on yourself. We've talked about training that inner voice. We've talked about looking after your body and your physical care. Another thing I think is so important, forgiving yourself for mistakes. I think sometimes
speak on it.
We make mistakes and we find it very hard to, one, say sorry to ourselves for making the mistake and forgiving ourselves. And I think that there are people that are so quick to forgive other people and they struggle to forgive themselves. And I to an extent, I understand it, because you might hold yourself to a higher standard in that you know your thoughts, you know what drives you, you know your principles. You can't speak for everyone else. So when you mess up, maybe that's harder on you, or you have to live with your inner thoughts. So maybe you're replaying the situation over and over again. But I think it is so important, if you make a mistake, to be able to say to yourself, it is a mistake, I am human, and I will try my best not to do it again, and leave it there. Because, for example, I'm an overthinker when it comes to
same
when it comes to how I'm navigating my life, right? I'm quite good at like not overthinking when it comes to like how people are relating to me, but I overthink a lot when it comes to how I'm relating to myself. And I have this bad habit of dwelling on things that I can't always control when it comes to my mistakes. If I've done something else in the past, I'll be replaying it. I should have done it.
Yeah.
You know, like, have you ever been in a debate, or maybe argument, discussion, or some kind of conflict with someone, and you walked away and you think, why didn't I say that? I should have said that. Oh my God, why did I say, oh my God. And you're replaying it. Like, you can actually.
Same. Yeah, I've definitely been there.
I'm terrible at that. Or say if I mess up, I'll be thinking about it over and over again. Like, how could you let that happen? How could you let that happen? Like, why did you mess up? And it's like, if it is out of your control, don't worry about it. Like, a wise man once said to me, like, F the uncontrollables and worry about the rest. Like, worry about what you can control. If you've made that mistake, you can't control what happened in the past. You can control what you do in the future. You can affirm that, okay, you know what? I made this mistake. I'll ensure that it doesn't happen again. But you're only human. You make mistakes, but don't beat yourself up over your mistakes. Have you ever been in a situation where you found it hard to forgive yourself for something?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, that's something that happens to everybody. But you know what I always try and do, and this is how I try and logicize this for people. You do the best that you do in a situation with the tools that you have, right? So when you are faced with a situation that's highly emotional, extreme emotions skew your ability to think. And that's just scientific. So when you're in an argument with somebody, the grief that you're experiencing within that argument or the extreme emotions that you're experiencing can skew your ability to be able to communicate. Yeah. So it's about being good to yourself and saying, right, you know what, I was so upset. I recognize that the tools that I had in that situation, I didn't have the right ones to deal with it in a way that I would have. And hindsight is always the best sight, you know? So it's even when you've been in abusive relationships or negative situations with people, your emotions are manipulated or your back is sometimes up against the wall. Yeah. And for us, quite often, we come from a survival self, and survival is less logical and more emotional, and you clutch at whatever you can to survive, right? So for me, I beat myself up in situations like that, maybe for not articulating myself properly, but I always find it important to understand the reasons why I reacted in that situation in the first place, you know? And if I look back on the things that I've done previously and cringe, it means that I've grown, and that is good for me. So if I say to myself, like, yo, I wish I'd dealt with that better. Well, Richie, what you had in that very moment wasn't what you needed to deal with it in the way that would make you happy now. Just be thankful that you've had the lessons to equip you to deal with the situation in the right way. I would say, though, is sometimes you're faced with the same situation again, and the emotions are so extreme, you're just straight.
Yeah, just do it again. Yeah.
So I've been there too. Yeah. You know, but I just feel like, you know, and I've said this a bit earlier on, and it sounds really cliche, like this whole life thing is a journey, you know, and you're constantly learning about yourself. And there's this thing called, I think it's called Johari's window. I think it's Johari's window. And it's the side that everybody sees in you. It's the side that you show to everybody. It's the side that people see that you don't know about yourself. And there's a side to you that you don't even know. So it's when you're faced with a situation that comes out, and it's understanding that us as humans, we're multifaceted. So how you may react on one day is going to be completely different to how you react on another day. And this journey of learning means that we constantly change and we constantly evolve. Sometimes we regress, and that is all part of the journey. Getting it perfect is never going to happen. So it's about finding that peace within yourself, being gentle with yourself and saying, you know what, this is part of my growth and it's part of me understanding myself. The fact that I can look back on this and wish I did something better means that I know I deserve better, and I know I have the skills in order to deal with it in the future. So I always try and look at it from a constructive perspective, because I am someone who's an overthinker and I can be really hard on myself.
I love that. I
feel like I went into a rant, sorry, but
No. I'm looking at the comments, like people are really absorbing what you're saying. You are, yeah, you know, you're talking a talk, man. You're talking a talk.
It's a blessing to be here with you today, honestly.
No, I'm so happy that we're doing this live, man. Like it's
definitely
like it's amazing. Like for everyone who's watching, I can see people like, you have to save this live. Don't worry, I'm gonna save this live. Okay, you know what? Shall we jump into the questions? Because we only have an hour. We've got 15 minutes left.
Okay, cool. Let's jump in. I'm ready. So make sure they're respectful, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna pick the respectful ones. Let's have a look at these.
Do they pop up on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh.
Would you forgive someone knowing they haven't grown from their mistakes?
You know what? Forgiveness isn't allowing someone back into your life, and I think we need to be able to identify that. So just because I forgive you for making a mistake, that doesn't mean you can still occupy the space that you had before the situation happened. So I can forgive you from a distance, Like, you've done that, but I know you have the capacity to behave in a way that doesn't make me feel good. So if that is something that I can't reconcile within myself, then I'll be harsh enough to say, you know what, I'm forgiving you, but you cannot occupy a space in my life. And I would just lastly say this: people being in your life is a privilege, it's not a right. And a privilege is something that you offer to people. See, if they don't respect how sacred that is, get rid of them or distance yourself from them. So the answer is, I could forgive someone knowing that they haven't grown, but I will not allow them back into my life again.
I love this. Yes, I think a lot of people assume that forgiveness has to equal reconciliation in a physical sense. Like forgiveness means I am not allowing someone to live rent free in my head. Forgiveness means I have moved on from this mistake. Forgiveness means I'm not holding a grudge and I have no negative or ill feeling towards you. Forgiveness doesn't have to mean we get back together, that you're my friend again,
Absolutely.
that I allow you back into my house, that I allow you back into my bed. I can forgive you and I can also create distance between us. So that is, yeah, I'm so glad you said that. So glad you said that. Let's have a look. Okay. What do you do when you love your own space, but you're dating someone who's very affectionate and always in your face?
What do you do, Tony? Tell me.
I think based on the discussion we've had and based on the discussion about relationships and love and the fact that the relationship that you should want in your life is one that's not just based on love, but also based on respect. If you're with someone who respects you, then you should be in a situation where you're able to communicate with them and say to them, look, I love you, I care about you, I enjoy spending time with you. However, I also need me time. I also need my own space. And if that is someone, if you say it in a way that is not negative, that is not malicious, if that person really respects you, they respect you as an individual, they respect your autonomy, they respect your need for time for yourself, then it might hurt them immediately, but they should give you that space. They would give you that space. I think that someone who may have an issue with you needing time for yourself, providing it's an adequate amount of time, because there's a big difference between
a week,
right? Self-care Sunday, like Richie said, and then be like, oh yeah, I need every other month, I need by myself, by the way. So it needs to be like a reasonable amount of time. But I think that anyone who has an issue with that, find out what the issue is, because it's not necessarily that they're a toxic person or they're a horrible person. They may be dealing with their own insecurities that mean that, like, if you ever like, for example, you guys listening, and Rich, I'm sure you know about this, but attachment styles, you have some
absolutely who are, that was part of my job.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have people who experience anxious attachment and they're very preoccupied. They need to be with their partner at all times. And they may have trust issues as well as a result of being abused, or previous relationship, being hurt. And it might be that this person wants to spend a lot of time with you, not because they're controlling in a negative way, but because they're dealing with their own traumas or dealing with their own insecurities. So I think it's about getting to the root of the problem and trying to understand, like, why is it that you do not want to allow me to have me time? Are you respectful of me as an individual? And then through communication, you should be able to get to a space where eventually it may have to, like, you may have to ease into it. So maybe not every week, maybe it's every other week, or maybe it's one day a month where you have your own space. But with time, it can eventually grow. But I think communication is key. And anyone who just does not respect your need for your own time to yourself, and they're unwilling to communicate, they're unwilling to compromise, that I don't think that's someone that you should necessarily be in a relationship with. Relationships, like Richie said, are supposed to be a sanctuary. They're supposed to be a place where you feel safe, where you can communicate. What about you, Richie? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna corroborate what you're saying, really, and that's just kind of I'd attempt to understand where that comes from, because for me, what I'm getting is insecurity. So what I'd need to understand is that insecurity born out of anything that I've done in this relationship to make you feel that way? And sometimes we do need to take responsibility, and sometimes that is about the person working through their issues and it's got nothing to do with you. So I would attempt to understand where the insecurity is coming from. And because I'm in a relationship with you, I love you. So I'll contextualize this space and allow you to understand what it means to me to have it. So that would be, you know, for me to take this time out, it means I'm a better man and I'm being a better man for you. I'm not out here taking this space, sleeping with other people or dating other people. This is just to fill myself up and to make myself feel like the best man that I can be, so I can come back and be a good man to you, you know? So it's about, you know, contextualizing it for somebody. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes that can be about people being possessive, and that's a whole different situation.
Yeah.
But if I've established that it comes from insecurity, or that person just doesn't understand why you're having to take that time, then you contextualize that with care, you know, and you hold them emotionally through that process, I think.
Richie, the ladies are loving you in the chat. I'm seeing Richie, a man. We all need a Richie. Richie.
No.
You can have
I'm a
some
bastard as well sometimes.
You can have some marriage proposals after this, I'm telling you. Okay, okay, so someone said, is there a fine line between self-love and being conceited? Can you address the difference? I think that there can be a fine line between self-love and being conceited. And I think one of the key attributes that stand out when it comes to being conceited, or whether you're loving yourself, is your intent, and whether you are hurting people in the process.
We are siblings. We're siblings. I swear.
I think when it comes to conceitedness, it's what is the foundation of that, and what is your intent? Are you prioritizing yourself because you are concerned about your well-being, you're concerned about your health, or are you prioritizing yourself because actually you think people are below you, or you're prioritizing yourself because you don't have respect for other people, or are you bigging yourself and putting other people down? So I think it's about understanding what is driving that. And I think when it comes to self-love, when you're administering self-love, you do not go out of your way to hurt anyone. Someone might be hurt as a result of your actions. Maybe you've cut someone out of your life. Maybe you need me time. Maybe you are protecting your space, but you have not intentionally gone out to hurt someone, and you're not intentionally trying to be malicious. But I feel like conceitedness often has a foundation, and the foundation is ego. And self-love and ego are separate. When you're caring about yourself and you're caring about your well-being, you are able to separate your ego from that and say, you know what, this is what's best for me, not because I think I'm the best person in the world. This is what's best for me because I need to take care of my health. I need to take care of my mind, my soul, my body and spirit. But when you're conceited, it's about ego. It's about telling everyone how amazing you are. It's about making other people feel inferior. It's about vanity. It's about gluttony. And I think that's a big difference between self-love and someone who is conceited. Richie, I know you've got some bars on this.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Self-love is about upliftment, and conceitedness is about oppression. So self-love is about how you see yourself as an individual. Conceitedness is about how you see yourself in opposition to other people. See, if you love yourself, that is about growth. That is about, what do I need as a person to become better and uplift me and make myself a better person? When it's conceitedness, it's, why are these people below me, or why will you never be on my level? It is about making other people feel bad, or the need to